What's happening, everyone? It's me, it's Jinsula. I hope you're having a good day, and welcome to today's Pokemon Go discussion video. So let's continue talking about Dynamax Pokemon. This has been a very big point of disappointment within the Pokemon Go community, mainly because there was a lot of people who were really hyped up for this new system, but it ended up becoming a huge flop. And the big reason for that is because there really is no gameplay implications behind engaging with this new Dynamax system. If you catch a whole bunch of Dynamax Pokemon, you cannot use them in raid battles and PvP. So a lot of players feel like this new system is completely pointless, and to that I agree. With the way Niantic has it set up right now, there really is no point for you to engage with this new Dynamax system. Now, I've already talked ad nauseum regarding this issue in a different video, but for the sake of this video, I wanted to talk about what Niantic could do to actually get players interested in this new Dynamax system. Ultimately, it comes down to having gameplay implications. If players are catching Dynamax Pokemon, then they need to be able to use those Dynamax Pokemon within various forms of Pokemon Go content. I'm talking about raid battles along with PvP. If Niantic were to incorporate Dynamax Pokemon into these other game modes, then I think a lot more players would be interested in actually trying to collect Dynamax Pokemon. Let's first talk about raid battles. The way that I would have wanted Dynamax Pokemon to work is that it would have been a temporary power-up, much like Mega Evolutions. You could Dynamax a Pokemon in your collection right before a raid battle, and you would get various bonuses to its stats, along with a lot of different utilities that you would typically not get. In the current Dynamax battling system, your Dynamax Pokemon has the capabilities to heal other Pokemon along with giving various boosts and buffs. And I really like the idea of this system being incorporated into raid battles, because as of right now with raiding, all it really is a damage race, and you're just trying to deal as much damage as you possibly can. But with the introduction of Dynamax Pokemon into raid battles, you could have a lot more dynamic strategies that players could utilize in order to get the most efficient results. Just imagine, if you were to have a raid party with both Dynamax Pokemon along with Mega Evolutions, raid battles would involve a lot more coordination and a lot more strategy. You could use Mega Evolutions to boost the offensive firepower capabilities of your raid party, but then you could use Dynamax Pokemon to keep your party alive, and then have it so that players will not need to use revives and potions as often as they would. It would also allow certain Pokemon that hit a lot harder to last longer in battle. That way you could have it so that certain players would bring certain Pokemon that would be glass cannons, and then you could use Dynamax Pokemon to keep those Pokemon alive so that you could deal the most efficient amount of damage. I think this sort of gameplay would have worked out a lot better, but Niantic decided to not go this way, and I think that is a huge missed opportunity. Now, let's talk about having Dynamax Pokemon incorporated into PvP. I think this is something that Niantic could have utilized to actually make PvP a lot more interesting. You could Dynamax a Pokemon in the middle of battle, and then if you do so, you will not be able to switch it out, but it would essentially be a bit of a tank. In a way, you are sacrificing a Pokemon in order to stall out the battle so that your other Pokemon can clean up. I like the idea of Dynamax Pokemon being incorporated into PvP battles because that was something that worked really well within the mainstream games. It definitely created a lot more dynamic strategies, and it caused a lot of players to rethink how they approach PvP battles, and the same could have been done for this game's PvP system. I mean, think of it this way. Imagine if when they released Mega Evolutions, you could only use Mega Evolutions for Mega Evolution raids, and you cannot use them for any other form of content in Pokemon Go. That is essentially how the current Dynamax system works. If you catch any Dynamax Pokemon, you cannot use it in raid battles and PvP. You could only use it for Dynamax battles, and I think that is completely underwhelming. Now, it needs to be said that the current iteration of the Dynamax system is not the finished product. There are going to be future updates to this system, and there is a possibility that they will introduce Dynamax Pokemon or even Gigantamax Pokemon that can actually be used in raid battles and PvP. For all the things that I'm proposing regarding incorporating Dynamax Pokemon into other forms of Pokemon Go content, Niantic might actually do that for Gigantamax Pokemon. The reason why I say that is because Gigantamax Pokemon are very specific to certain species, very similar to how Mega Evolutions work. When you Dynamax a Pokemon and it becomes a Gigantamax Pokemon, it should have various utilities that are very specific to that Pokemon. And if I were Niantic, I would allow Gigantamax Pokemon to be usable in raid battles with those specific utilities. I would be totally okay with the current Dynamax system if it was an avenue towards getting Gigantamax Pokemon which would be usable for raids. If that was the case, then I totally think this system would actually work out well. You need to collect various basic Dynamax Pokemon in order to battle Gigantamax Pokemon in order to get those special forms so that you could use them in raid battles and actually get a significant power boost. I mean, if it ends up being that way, then I'm totally going to eat my words, and this system is actually going to be really good. But as of right now, it doesn't seem like this is in Niantic's plans, and because of that, I think it's totally okay to feel disappointed with how Niantic implemented Dynamax Pokemon into Pokémon GO. It really is a shame and a lot of missed opportunities. So ultimately what it comes down to is that Niantic needs to do a bit of course correcting. If they were to have a way for Dynamax Pokemon to be integrated into other forms of content in Pokémon GO, then I do think there's going to be a lot more players interested in this system. No matter where you are in your Pokémon GO journey, you're going to be most motivated by how effective you are in raid battles and PvP with the Pokémon that you catch. If you catch a Pokémon that's extremely powerful, then you're going to want to max it out. And if you catch a Pokémon that's not necessarily going to be useful, then it's basically going to just collect a lot of dust in your collection. So when it comes to Dynamax Pokemon, that's exactly what players are looking for. They're looking for an increase in power when it comes to raid battles and PvP. And if you cannot use these Pokemon in those other forms of gameplay, then players are just simply not going to care. And I really do think this is what Niantic needs to understand when it comes to this new feature. It's very simple. The best way to fix Dynamax Pokemon and the new Dynamax system is to simply have a way for you to be able to use Dynamax Pokemon in raid battles and PvP. If Niantic can figure that out, then yeah, I will say that this system was a huge success. But yeah, with that said, that's going to be it for this discussion video. Now, I would like to know your thoughts regarding Dynamax Pokemon. How would you fix the current system and make it something that players would actually care about? There's definitely going to be a lot of really good ideas within the Pokemon GO community, mainly because a lot of players were looking forward to Dynamax Pokemon and they probably had their own ideas on how they would implement it. If you have any ideas on how you could do Dynamax Pokemon better, definitely share it in the comments below and let's have a great discussion. And as always, thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. If you ended up enjoying it, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if it's your first time here, and don't forget that little bell so you can stay up to date on whenever I upload videos. And real quick, let me give a shout out to all of my patrons on Patreon. You make this channel content possible. If you want to support the Jinsula channel, the absolute best way to do so is by joining my Patreon. If you become a paid Patreon member, I will give you the benefit of being a part of my Pokemon GO friends list. So that means for stuff like remote raids and the friendship system, if you want to play Pokemon GO with me, then make sure you go and check out my Patreon. And if you want to support my channel in a different way, you could do so by following me on social media. My handle is @Jinsula. I'm on the platforms that you see on screen. Make sure you go over there and give me a follow. And then that way you could catch up with what's going on in my life. And yeah, and that's going to be it for this video. I'm Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you all later.